Well, happy 420. Let's talk about some movies that'll make you high. Welcome to the Film Threat Podcast. I hope you're having a good week and a good 420. This is always, I'm going to be honest, I'm not really a weed person, but I do love movies centered around weed for some reason. Yeah, Cheech and Chong's Up in Smoke, I think, is a huge classic. If you have not seen that film, that movie holds up to today. It's amazing. We're going to talk about the best movies to watch on 420 that are all weed related. Okay, and to help me with that is Alan Ng, managing editor of Film Threat.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, welcome. How's it going? I have a special green background. It's
we're thematic today. I've got my shirt on. It's we're ready to go.
Yeah, I've got this. This is not. They're not a sponsor or anything, but I was at the Mammoth Mammoth Film Festival in Mammoth Lakes, California, and they had these special hemp drinks. So I'm going to drink one now in honor of 420.
Oh, great. So apparently I'm going to have to take over soon.
Yeah. Well, I doubt that. CBD doesn't really get you high, but I only learned this from watching documentaries about that, which we'll get into. But let's actually talk about these 420 movies.
Yeah.
For some reason, and no, it's just, you know what? We at Film Threat, we review anything. If you send us a movie, we're going to review it. Just submit it to us. We'll review it. So consequently, as we were doing some research, there's a lot of movies about weed and 420 that are already on the Film Threat website. Yeah. So let's actually go right to it and check it out. I'm going to add this. This is, Alan, we just kicked off our Tribeca Film Festival coverage. The Tribeca Film Festival in New York City is not happening, obviously, because of the pandemic, but they are presenting some of the films that would have played the Tribeca Film Festival. Maybe you can tell us about some of those before we kick off our 420.
Now you're going to put me on the spot. Yeah, we just started putting on the reviews now. Unfortunately, this is not one of them.
I would think that Beer Jesus from America would be. First of all, I saw when that movie came in. I definitely want to see it. But what's interesting about kind of weed culture that I've always observed, and I've always talked to my friends that are super into weed to try to explain this to me. Okay, I love beer, right?
Yeah,
I love beer. I like to drink beer. Love my beer. But I don't wear like beer t-shirts or beer belt buckle or have like beer bumper stickers. But people that are into weed, they're like into weed merch.
Yeah.
You know, weed, like I say, belt buckles, t-shirts, bumper stickers. It really is. There's definitely like a whole culture around. I think it's because weed represents, or perhaps used to represent, as now it becomes legalized more and more in states across the country, used to represent just rebelliousness or just like sticking it to the man, or just like
absolutely. There's a pride now in saying, "Hey, I'm part of that culture."
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I support it. I just don't smoke it.
Yeah. I was going to say one interesting thing about weed and films is like I go to a lot of the international film festivals, the World Cinema, and in World Cinema, everybody smokes. They got cigarettes and they're smoking. But here in America, we don't smoke. In fact, it's frowned upon. It's it'll bump your rating to an R if you're smoking. But if you're doing pot, not only do Americans smoke, but they smoke pot. But now that is an essential plot line to the actual story, as opposed to just smoking cigarettes.
Well, let's talk about a more recent film about weed that it's from Full Moon Entertainment, Charlie Band, of course, the guy behind Corona Zombies.
Yeah. Oh, and this is an award this winter as well.
Oh, it's an award this winter. That's right. Weedjies Halloweed Night. It's, you know what? Real simply, it's Gremlins with weed. It's ridiculous. It's over the top. It's, these sort of weed creatures, these gremlins that, they get the munchies. It's totally dumb. It knows that it's dumb, and I just fully enjoyed it. I can imagine that all these movies might be good with, some enhanced state. But actually, when the guy who came up to accept the award this was under the category of WTF.
Yes.
Like, WTF is this movie? What is this movie? Right? Actually brought one of the creature effects, one of those creatures from Weedjies, brought it to the stage, which is pretty funny. You can find that clip on our YouTube channel. But this movie I just thoroughly loved. It's just dumb fun. You could put it on a double bill with Cheech and Chong's Up in Smoke.
Yeah, and it has Howard Stern's Richard and Sal in it.
That's right. Richard and Sal are in it, which is a lot of fun to see them. I love when I see them pop up in movies, or anyone from the Stern Show. Oddly enough, Al and I are big Stern Show fans. So and I fortunate enough to know a few people from the show, which is kind of funny. But yeah, I like when they turn up in just like weird exploitation movies.
Yeah,
this one is just like Weedjies is just like super weird, super fun, gross, dumb,
very silly.
What's that? It's
very silly.
Look, what's your expectation going in, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, when you so whatever. But now switching gears to perhaps some more serious. A lot of documentaries have been made about marijuana, and specifically Waldo on Weed. We had the director of Waldo on Weed, Tommy Avalone. He was on an episode of the Film Threat podcast. You can see on the channel or listen on Spotify, whatever, which is about a father not into weed at all. These parents, their son Waldo ends up getting a rare form of cancer in his eye, and they used weed to deal with the sort of in conjunction with chemotherapy, used marijuana to heal his son. It shows, and all of this is shot with like home cameras, just like iPhone.
Yeah. The parents were actually, capturing most of the video of themselves. And then Tommy came along to do the interviews and then edit it all together.
Yeah, I really like it. It's like it's a very personal documentary. One of the scenes in it that I thought was amazing is the father is so desperate to help his son. He flies to California because they're in excuse me, they're in Philadelphia or Pennsylvania?
I believe it's Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Pennsylvania, right? So they fly from Pennsylvania, where weed is not legal. They fly to California, where weed is legal. They buy the weed, but they don't want to risk that they're going to get caught on the plane transporting marijuana. So they mail it to themselves. But what they do is, this is a good tip, actually, if you want to know something. They put the weed in like a toy, but then wrap the toy in a box and wrap it in birthday wrapping paper, and then put a card like "Happy Birthday."
Yeah, I wonder what movie they got that one from.
Oh yeah, well yeah, but it's I like that they documented their process and their journey, and also it's not just their journey about helping their son, but it's also how they did it, the trial and error that they went through in trying to find the best method to work, and then how it really changed their lives, because their attitudes. The parents of Waldo weren't weed people. They weren't into weed, right? They're just, I mean, he worked at a pizza.
Yeah.
Right?
What I found most fascinating about this is, we're in California. You and I have lived here since it was all legalized from a medical standpoint. Even we're kind of used to the availability of weed for medical purposes,
right?
And so that's kind of our lifestyle. But now you're seeing it from the aspect of a person who lives in a state where it's illegal, and you realize this is still going on today.
Yeah, it's I feel like the thing is that there hasn't been any real scientific study. The movie touches on this, there hasn't really been any studies, but the anecdotal evidence is so overwhelming that I think that at some point it'll have to be studied. So check out Waldo on Weed. For sure. I would say check out all these movies. And one that relates to it, it was a little over a year ago that we interviewed Abby Epstein on the Film Threat podcast. My friend Jess Del Pino, she's a health and wellness expert. She has a company called Whole Function Wellness. You can find her on Instagram. I had her join me on this episode of the Film Threat podcast talking about Weed the People, which is actually produced by Ricky Lake. She was in John Waters' movie. The name escapes me. It's like I've had weed right now.
Oh, it was Hairspray, wasn't it?
Hairspray, that's right. Why did I space on Hairspray? You know why? It's right, because I need some hairspray. It's weird. I just, I don't know how long you're going without showering, Alan, but boy, you can.
No, I took one yesterday after about a week.
but anyway, so Abby Epstein came on the podcast with my friend Jess Del Pino. We had a whole discussion, and this is similar to Waldo on Weed. It looks at different cases of children dealing with cancer and how weed actually aided in their journey towards becoming healthy. So I think that it's funny. Documentaries about pot are I mean, you can see.
I'll say one thing about Weed the People. My wife has had breast cancer for several years, and it came back, and she saw Weed the People, and every time she went to see a new specialist or a new doctor, she goes, "Have you seen this movie?" And and so the question is, she's asking questions about how weed can be used with her current treatment, and a lot of the doctors are just saying, well, there's no scientific studies about this, but if you want to do it, we're okay with it. And so we're trying it out. I mean, it's anecdotal.
It's anecdotal. And Alan, I know your wife Laura, she's amazing. I feel like you want to do everything possible, right? You want to do anything you can to help. So I would say I hope she's on the weed. And using it. But there's got to be studies. The one thing that really disappoints me is, and I'm glad you brought that up about her asking doctors. I feel like when you talk to doctors these days, it's like talking to lawyers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they don't want to get sued if something happens.
See, that's it. I feel like their hands are tied. I feel like it's like talking to a lawyer. And that's why I think that the sort of the wellness industry, which is outside the traditional realm of like, oh, we go to the doctor, you trust what the doctors say. But I feel that doctors these days seem to be compromised by the prescription drug industry. I don't have to put on a tinfoil hat to show you how painkillers have decimated parts of the country by being overprescribed. Yeah. And I think when you look at we constantly see cases where people on weed went on killing sprees. Oh, wait, we never do. That's the thing that happened.
That pot rage that
person that was so much on the weed, look, everyone that I know that's had too much weed, they fall asleep. Yeah. They fall asleep or they smile and laugh too much. Yeah. So I feel,
I don't know, when they get behind the wheel of a car and they're screaming down the street at 10 miles an hour,
10 miles an hour. That's right. But I don't know. I just, I think that too many things have come to light recently, which has made us look other places, right? Yeah. Look other places like CBD and marijuana for, to just solve whatever. I mean, you would do anything to help a sick member of your family or a sick friend.
And it's not killing people. That's the one thing we're not realizing. You can take it. Maybe it's a placebo, but it's definitely not harming you at this point.
Right. So I do suggest seeing as many of these weed documentaries as you can, because I feel like each one that I see kind of adds another piece of the puzzle to like what this is, because I don't know that we're going to, at least in the short term, be able to depend on any real scientific evidence. Studies haven't been done. So, and here's another one, Mary Jane's the Women of Weed.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen this one. I don't think you have either, but it's a documentary about the women who have pioneered kind of the weed research, weed studies, and trying to get legalized in the United States as well.
This isn't one that I've seen, but Dante James, who's a frequent contributor to the Film Threat podcast and website, wrote this review. and I can just tell you that he knows his weed. And I can just tell you from knowing Dante, he knows. He posts the best memes about weed.
He does a lot of great networking with it as well.
Yeah, this is one that I have not seen, the marijuana conspiracy.
Yeah, this one, it's a study that took place, I want to say, in the mid '60s. It's similar to another movie we're about to talk about, but politicians basically wanted to have studies about the negative effects of marijuana on women, particularly here. And so they did a study. They took, I think it was 8 women here, and they kept them locked up for about 90 days. And every day they would take weed, and they would increase the dosage over time. And then they would look at the effects, whether they went into paranoia. They would give them jobs to do, like making macrame, and just to see whether they can if that quality of the work goes down over time. And not to spoil the ending, but it found out that marijuana didn't really have any negative effects, but that's not what the politicians wanted to hear. And that third act kind of deals with that aspect of it.
I feel like any study that you see, any scientific study or study for some purposes, there's always a conclusion that they want to get to.
Yeah.
So,
and this is a drama, I should say. This is not a documentary.
Yeah, I was going to say, it doesn't look like a documentary to me. It looks like but I would like to see, whenever I see usually a drama about a real historical event, I think I'd rather see a documentary about that. Maybe that's just my personal taste.
Yeah, because you can always write in your own facts. That's not to say people do that maliciously, but that happens.
Right. Now, there is a Reefer Madness review on the Film Threat website. And Reefer Madness is a movie that really was intended to show that, it's basically a piece of propaganda. Reefer Madness made basically to stop people from doing marijuana, showing these terrible effects of it. But this is Reefer Madness, the musical, which we have a review of.
We actually have a review of both, the original and the musical.
But Reefer Madness, the musical, God, I think I saw this like years ago when it came out. And I just remember it being just weird and kind of making light of the original film, which is totally ridiculous. It makes... Yeah,
that's Kristen Bell right there, for one thing.
Yeah, exactly. It makes it look like that weed is just like so awful. And so the musical just sort of makes light of that, based on the classic film.
Yeah. And I like the musical. It reminded me of like Little Shop of Horrors, and it's just very catchy, very dark.
It's cheesy.
Yeah, it's very cheesy.
Oh, and then this movie actually just
came in. More legal pot shops in Colorado
than
McDonald's and Starbucks.
Yeah, you recognize that voice?
When people come into town, they say, "Oh my God, are people just high everywhere?"
I tell them, man, you can go to the gas station, get a box of chicken, fill up your gas tank, and get a sack of weed in one spot.
We went from 0 to 100 miles an hour overnight. So we went from it being illegal to waking up, and now it's a constitutional right.
We have never been in an environment where marijuana this potent has been this readily available to so many.
I have the Chiba Chew, and we have our Zoo straps.
We are strictly organic and pesticide free. So we really have quality bud, and then all of our other products, are going to be mirrored to that quality.
Without FDA involvement, nobody's making sure that some guy's toenails aren't in here.
Almost half.
Well, you get the idea. Yeah. This is.
I can explain a little bit.
This movie just came in for review, just to get.
This is a documentary. We'll have the review up it today. But it documents the growth of the weed industry in Colorado once they legalized it. The statistic at the beginning is there are more weed dispensaries in Colorado than there are, I believe, McDonald's and Starbucks combined. So it goes in kind of the legal and the medical benefits of marijuana, but it also there's a little bit of the naysayers, and this movie actually presents a fair case for them, because one thing mentioned in the trailer is the potency of weed in Colorado grew 10 times since the law came into effect, and so there were a lot of unintended consequences of that law, and they kind of go over that in the documentary as well.
Well, that's the discussion I've had with my friends that are big marijuana proponents. I know if I have 1, 2, or 3 beers, what the effects will be with me. I know my body. I know like how much alcohol I can handle. I know when I should stop drinking so I can responsibly drive home if I've even driven. But with marijuana, I don't know, and I've always. My experience with it has always been I'm not a smoker. I've never been a smoker, so I would not smoke weed, but I would try an edible. And my experience with edibles is I had half a cookie. It didn't do anything to me. I had the whole cookie. It didn't do anything to me. And then an hour later, it's like
that was the experience my wife had as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is like a tiny bit of a brownie.
Right.
It didn't take much.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I just feel like my whole thing with the regulation of weed is just give me the potency so I'll be able to, through some sort of getting used to it, figure out how my body will react. And I know. And the other cool thing about this documentary, Robin Quivers narrates the doc. Robin Quivers from the Stern Show, who is a cancer survivor. So that's pretty cool. So it's cool that the review will be up on the website today on 4/20.
Yes. Yeah, visit filmthread.com. It'll be there. You'll see it.
Awesome. Yeah. No, we will. And also we should point out, Film Threat, we review these movies. We don't just review marijuana movies, we'll review so many other independent films. So
let's just say we review so many films that we could have a marijuana episode.
We could, yeah, exactly. That's how many we could do. But I do want to say, please help support our efforts. Go to SoundCloud.com and support Film Threat. SoundCloud.com/Film Threat and support what we're doing. Also, if you're an indie filmmaker, you know what? Send us your movie. You can go to filmthreat.com, click on the submit tab. You can send us your film. We will review anything. So please like, share, subscribe to us on YouTube or Spotify, iTunes. However you're absorbing the podcast, you're absorbing it into your mind, into your brain. We talk about a lot of films that maybe some other movie websites don't. And thanks for watching. Happy 420.
Happy 420.
Happy 420. Thanks a lot.